Hi again, everyone, from Cedar Rapids. I am Bob Ask with my continuing story. My life in historical context. My little world in the big world. Today, in a total of 20 vignettes, it's number 18. Have you ever spent Christmas Eve, Christmas morning on a midnight train ride, overnight, Christmas Eve to Christmas Day? Sounds kind of spooky, sort of romantic. Have you ever been in a pie eating contest? Maybe even hosted one where the winner put down 7 pieces of pie. Have you ever been on a Sunday night television news program, let alone 2 times? Once at the beginning of the half-hour program and once at the conclusion. Sunday night television. Now stay with me throughout, because I've done all 3. I've entitled my session for today, The Asks, Family Memories. More events, more blessings, more follies, beyond all those that I've already covered in our preceding sessions, in our various subjects and decade coverage. I'm going to build my presentation around these 6 categories. First of all, family holidays. Secondly, special celebrations. Thirdly, following the grandkids. Number 4, our songs, stories, games. Number 5, family travels. And then concluding, funny things that we still laugh at that came along in our family story, all becoming now history, and it's being recorded after having been researched. Going back to the train ride, Christmas Eve, Christmas morning. Talk about romance. Yes, Marilyn and I were still kind of newlyweds. Remember our love story, how in 1946 we met, and in 1949 we married? Well, this was in 49, that Christmas, so we were still newlyweds in a romantic environment. What were we doing? We celebrated Christmas Eve in Ottumwa, as usual. In Muscatine, they organized and spent Christmas on Christmas morning. So we took a train ride from one to another, from Ottumwa to Muscatine on the Milwaukee Railroad. Spooky, yes. Romantic, yes. But a strange Christmas Eve. That was a fun time to go from one to another. Now, more on the Christmas side of things. When you start talking Christmas, it's the special place to start, of course, was in the confines of the church and the spiritual. We have fond memories that we'll lead off real quickly with, because there were the various usual programs, all the services, all the parties, Sunday school, the choir, and the rest of them. And Lindsay and me, we were in one stage presentation. Another one, Marilyn and I were together. And then, of course, we got to see all the kids growing up in their various Christmas youth programs. Christmas Eve, when I grew up with my family tradition, was the bigger day of the two. Christmas Day was sort of an aftermath of maybe following up this and that, maybe doing some traveling. So Christmas Eve was the big night as I grew up. Later on, when our 4 children came along, we would go to Ottumwa Christmas Eve and spend the evening with the whole gang, John's, Miriam's, aunts and uncles, at Reese's funeral home, a beautiful landmark home, which is, for the kids, was kind of extra special, as they could kind of scout around in a funeral home. Reese Funeral Home in Ottumwa. And then, later on, we went to the caves, Miriam and Don, and had Christmas Eve out there. And we had a lot of good times at the caves. The program usually consisted of, well, little Jerry read the scripture, the Christmas story, and we still laugh at what Jerry's called Joseph's exposed wife. He read the scripture. Carolyn sang a song with Jane accompanying her. Jan played the piano. Becky was one of the wise men with Steve and Jimmy. And me, John, and Miriam sang "O Holy Night." That was the typical Sunday night program, Christmas Eve, at the caves. Now, in more recent years, being still in Cedar Rapids, we would go to Jan or Becky's on alternate years for what we called Christmas Eve and the famous hamwitches. That was Christmas Eve in our tradition. We can still remember, ask the kids, they'll share this. Our ride from Cedar Rapids to Ottumwa on Christmas Eve was kind of fun, as you went through little towns like Delta and Whatcheer, kind of wondering what are all these people going to do on this special night of the year. Christmas Eve drive to Ottumwa. Many years we would go the circuit during a several day away from home. We'd go from Ottumwa to Burlington to Muscatine to see grandparents on Maryland's side, ending up on the farm, or Burlington, Muscatine, then Burlington. So we would make the circuit. That was part of our tradition. We'll never forget one Christmas, we were all home, and except for Carolyn, were sick. That was the humbug of Christmas, and the only one of that nature. But that was the sick Christmas. In Ottumwa, over the few days spent there, we would eat out at Molly's or the Stardust. And of course, at home, we had Mom, Grandma's famous Swedish rye bread, Swedish food, lutefisk, and all the rest that was available on a special occasion. Continuing Christmas, when Marilyn's mother worked at Armstrong's over the Christmas season, we would go down and pick her up and go to Bishop's. And that was always a fun time. And that's when we started to sing as a family, just for fun. Have a holly jolly Christmas, eat at Bishop's once a year. Oh, by golly, have a holly jolly Christmas this year. Just a fun little human incident. I'll never forget, the kids will agree, the night at Caves on Christmas Eve, that we were swept into a blizzard, and the difficult time getting back to 1315 East 4th, and for Marilyn and I going over to Dawson's, George and Ruth, to stay. A blizzard Christmas Eve. So, my favorite night in the whole year, I've always said, since the 1930s, when I got my little red wagon, when Big Brother John was Santa Claus one year, when we got my ball glove, and I hate to say it, but I even got, I think, some Shirley Temple dolls for when she was famous, and that was way back in the Tumwa days. So it's always been that a special time. Then, of course, later on, when our kids had their own families, it was to each his own, and they would have their own celebrations and big Christmas days, and Marilyn and I got to be invited out to each of them. How did we celebrate the other holidays? Well, involving the big four, I call them, on the 4th of July, when the kids were growing up, we'd go up on Jeff Hill and watch the fireworks from downtown. And the kids would eat popcorn and pop and roll down the hill just for fun. Sometimes we'd go even down and sit on the bridge. Halloween was a big time, and we would go on Halloween out to Jerry and Shelley's, and we would have what I call the Jerry and Brad show at the door, with their dancing and all of their antics. A fun time at the door. One year we were all garbed in Lincoln gear, and I'll never forget this song, which I taught to my kids, which became a famous song, not my own, but one they'll still remember. Jack-o'-lantern, jack-o'-lantern, you are such a funny sight, as you sit there in the window looking out at the night. You were once a yellow pumpkin growing on a sturdy vine. Now you are a jack-o'-lantern, let the candlelight shine. Halloween, a fun time in Ask History. Then, of course, there would be soon Thanksgiving. It started out as a one-day celebration, turned out to be two, because somewhere along the line, kids would start coming over, starting with Ron and his brothers, I believe it was, the night before Thanksgiving Eve. And Marilyn, already well into her pie making, about a dozen of them, if I remember right, and they would get a sneak preview of the good pie the night before. Well, soon the idea caught on, and we called it Pie Night. And they'd all come over. Everybody would forget their supper, see how many pieces they could eat, in a contest, the one I was alluding to earlier, and I think Jerry broke and still hold the record until it ended. 7 pieces of pie on pie night, a unique family tradition. And then, of course, the next day would be the big Thanksgiving Day. For several years, the entire Reed family would come from Muscatine, and we would eat at our house. Our kids and all the Reeds, they still remember it if you ask them. And then later on, we moved on over here to Jerry and Shelley's, where you could sit where I did at the head of table 1, and all you could see would be, I think, about 5 different seatings of table on a tremendous meal and celebration on Thanksgiving here at the Asks. Now, there were special family celebrations quickly. My 40th was held in our downstairs rec room, and all planned by Marilyn, a complete surprise for me, my 40th birthday. All my coaching friends and teachers would come and had that one night. Marilyn made medals. We had Olympic games, and we tried to keep Carolyn quiet, so we put her next door while the final arrangements were being made, so she wouldn't spill the beans. And what a surprise it was for me when I was seated downstairs and in came all the people. Our 50th anniversary, 1999, was held at the Clarion. And then, oh, what a celebration for my 90th. A complete surprise again when I came out to Jerry and Shelley's house, what I thought was a routine evening, and there were no cars around. Well, they were all parked elsewhere, I found out. And I entered the door, and the entire staircase was full of our family, celebrating my 90th. What a wonderful time that was, and a complete surprise, and a sign which was huge, making note of the occasion. Well, weddings are always special. They're every one number 1 in importance, but there were 3 that we kind of give special memory to because of the unusual circumstances involved. The 3 unusual weddings of our kids. Jerry and Shelley at Newton. Why unusual? Becky brought 3-day-old Blake to the wedding. Just think. Ron and Jan, great at our church. Why so unusual? The big UNI track meet that morning, and Ron threw the javelin. The men went up to the track meet in the morning, and then came the wedding the rest of the day. What a day. And the people from out east, Ron's parents, were even there. And then we'll never forget Emily and Rob's wedding. Why? Because Cedar Rapids was in the midst of the great flood, and we had to circle around trying to get from place to place in a flooded Cedar Rapids. All the weddings were fun. I'll never forget Jordan and Winters when they took that famous picture of them with Mother and I, and the kids were singing YMCA and "You Can't Shove Shorty Around, Shorty Won't Budge," something like that. Wonderful occasions. We followed our grandkids in all their activities. Let me read quickly the list, just a glimpse of what Marilyn and I, were to be enjoyed and find enjoyable. Haley, Jeff Soccer, University of Nebraska cheerleader at the first and the top one, and Marilyn and I and the others got to see 2 Nebraska football games with Haley, a beautiful cheerleader for the Huskers. Brad, one of Jeff's top 3 shooters ever, made 8 3-pointers in one half against Lidmar. One of the 3 best ever, Brad at Jeff. Lindsay, Jefferson's 1995 Girl Athlete of the Year. Wonderful, talented sprinter for the Jayhawks and for the Cohawks at the state meet and at the Drake relays. Lindsay in her specialties. Blake, 4 sports at Jeff. Broke football and swimming records both at Jeff and at Co. Going from one sport to the other and breaking records on the way. Amy, playing softball, basketball, and softball at Jefferson, was called by her coach a tenacious one, and you never shoved Amy around. Amy wouldn't go. Tyler played AAU with Jared Uthoff, Jerry's good team, and also was on the Band of Blue drum line. Emily, 3 sports standout for Jefferson: track, soccer, volleyball. Andrew, star basketball and baseball for Jeff, had a great career at Coe College, got to play against the Cyclones at Hilton in Ames. And Jordy, among Jeff's best ever in assists and 3-point shooting, still on the record board, and is still a member of Jeff's famous record-holding foursome in golf. Jordan played great basketball at Mount Mercy. We go to songs, stories, and games. My little song's all original. It kind of started early, I'm told, because when I was just a little kid walking around, my mom would tell me I remember singing a song I composed. It went like this. Daddy buried Mommy up at Heine's store, Des Moines Fair, Labor Day, whatever that means. That was my first song. My most famous song was Hi, Hi, Mr. Moon. And it went like this. Daddy said to Janice, come on down, let's go to see the moon. Up high, he's shining through the window at you. And high, 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 Mr. Moon, up in the sky so bright, shine down up on little Janice tonight, sleepy baby Janice. And that continued for all the other kids. For Jan and Becky, one that I composed while they were little went like this. Daddy takes his kitties to the park to swing in the swings all day, and all the little friends were there, all the little boys and girls. There's Janice and Becky, Johnny and Jimmy, Stevie and Susie, Johnny Bush, Tommy Book, and little Annie Carthy too, and little Annie Carthy too. Another song that the kids remember. And then there were a special memory. When the kids were growing up, Jan, Becky, Jerry, Shelley, Dennis, Becky needed a Friday night out. So we had at our house, Marilyn and me, we had kids' nights. And when they came, we would sing this song. Open the doors and they just keep coming. Open the doors and they just keep coming. Open the doors and they just keep coming. Towers and barrettes. There's Lindsay, Amy, Bradley, and Andrew. Lindsay, Amy, Bradley, and Andrew. Lindsay and Amy, Bradley, and Andrew. Don't forget little Blake. 3 little towers, 2 little barrettes, and then Emmy and Haley ask. Sorry, Jordan. Sorry, Tyler. You came along too late to get in on that song. And then for the older kids, we would say, for those kids who now were getting tired, and we were getting tired, we were waiting for the moms and dads to come home after 2 hours with the kids in the living room, and we would sing, get 'em, pack 'em in the car, get 'em out of here so we can watch our show. Hey, we were ready for the show Dallas, and soon the kids would leave, and we were on our own after kids' night, a great family tradition. Each of the kids got their own songs by me, the famous composer. Again, we had to leave out Jordan and Tyler, came along too late, but they got the phonograph fun, and me and them watching Hail to the Victors, and they actually could vision football players on the record player. But for the others, it went like this. Blake Barrett, don't you know that he's the best? He's the best in all the West. Blake Barrett, step aside, he's coming through. Blake Barrett, he is just the nicest fellow when he isn't eating Jell-O. Inside joke. Blake Barrett, step aside, he's coming through. Blake Reed Barrett. And then there is, she's Amy, Christina, Birdina, Katrina. She's Amy, Christina, Birdina, Barrett. And then little Lindsay got the quaddy gear party-voo. Lindsay got the quaddy gear party-voo. Lindsay got the quaddy gear, but the little honey was never there. World War I. Hinky stinky parley-voo. That was Lindsay's song. And then Haley Jill went up Jeff Hill along with Sister Emmy. They looked around and saw the town and hurried back to Grandma's. And then she is Grandpa's baby girl. She is such a special girl. We want the world to know that Emily is lovely, lovely, lovely. And then look who's standing over there, little Bradley Stephen. He has curls in his hair, little Bradley Stephen. There's his little brother too, darling little Andrew. They're the little tower boys, Robert and Stephen. Sort of a Christmas tone to it. And then he's Andrew Robert Tower. He's a little flower. Andrew Robert Tower, Grandpa's little boy. Well, no Victor Herbert, but I was a composer along with everything else. Stories, there was the Branson story. After a trip down to southern Missouri, I started making Branson stories about the little kids down there and the famous landmark called Dewey Bald, featuring Mr. and Mrs. T.J. Boogersnacks, Nancy Jane Aggie Waggy, Candy Carrot, Mary La 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 La, and little Mary Ann Von Donsler. There was Kiki Phillips and Tommy Flats and Rocky Stone. There was Miss Wilcox, the teacher, who came to the meetings and always brought hot jelly rolls. But there were the bad people too. Oh yeah, they were there too. There was Black Pete, Grandma Crotchety, and Mrs. Gorgon, and a little boy, bad boy, who did all their dirty tricks for him, called Frankie Fedderson. He's the one that caused the trouble, unless they all went up and ruined their camping on Dewey Bald. So for Frankie Fedderson, finally, everybody felt good, the kids as they listened, because it went like this. He's gone, Frankie moved away. He's gone, he's gone away to stay. Now all the boys and all the girls are happy every day, because Frankie Fedderson has moved away. Uh-oh. What's that? He's back, Frankie's back in town. He's back, he's hanging all around, and all the boys and all the girls are crying every day. Frankie Fedderson is back in town. Stories. When it came to games, let's see. When it came to games, I'll never forget Jerry and Shelley when they were real little. Jerry and Carolyn were little in bed, and I would go to bed and sleep with them for a little while till one would leave, or maybe stay even together as real little kids. And we would play, "It's love your daddy time. It's love your daddy time. Come on, you little kids. It's love your daddy time." Then they'd jump all over me and wrestle me. Then we'd sing, "It's love your Jerry time. It's love your Jerry time." And then it's love your Scorpa time. It's love your Carolyn time. Come on, you little kid. And we'd roll around in the bed having fun. Fun game, me and two real little kids. And then later on we had a game we invented called LBJ, where I was the president giving a speech, and they would interrupt me and say bad things, and I would put those bad things in my speeches, and then I'd have to go after them for causing the trouble, the rat, the mouse in the room. There was Swiss ball in the living room, and the boys will remember that one little ball called the uncle, as they kept score playing Swiss ball in the living room. On those nights, we took care of kids. There was meatball outdoors. where we would hit down, especially down in Ottumwa, a little bowl with a broomstick outdoors in Ottumwa. We called it meatball. So there was Swiss ball, meatball, and then for Jerry and me, we would go downstairs to what we called Kiel Auditorium, or in Ottumwa, a place called Coble Hall, and I would play one-on-one with Jerry, and he somehow always came out just a little bit better than me as Bobo Pasquale, and me, big jumping Jack Jacobs, never quite able to beat Jerry. Well, Carolyn, she was our designated cheerleader. Bobo Pasquale and jumping Jack Jacobs. And then there was tree ball, and where you throw the ball up in the tree and you try and catch it. Tyler and I played hide the fruit when he'd come over and I had just retired, and we'd go downstairs and play hide the fruit, and I was never able quite to beat Jordan. And that little boy must have thought how dumb Grandpa is, because he's hiding right on the hidden fruit and he can't even find it. Tyler and I, we grew up together. He, a little kid, and me, retired. We had a lot of wonderful family trips. Just a quick glimpse of what I call my favorite. New England, New York City, rail, auto, by plane to New England. Several trips where I had 30 first cousins, and we'd go down all the way down to Manhattan. So New England, New York City, several trips. There was Virginia and Washington, D.C., where we made 2 trips. Maryland once, and I once made the whole circle, going by Amtrak and then going to all the Civil War and the colonial and the revolutionary sites all the way around to Charlottesville and Jefferson. There was Florida trips of South Carolina, 5 trips down there for Carolyn to see her, up to Charleston and to Disney World and to a bowl game. There was New Orleans and the Gulf Coast for Marilyn, Grandpa, and I on the City of New Orleans, that famous train from Chicago. Colorado, our favorite place, Estes Park, Rocky Mountain National Park, coming down with little Jerry from Chasm Lake when he could barely come down from that long journey from 9-5 up to 12-5 to see Chasm Lake. 3 of our 6 made it. Jordan had to be helped back, Jerry had to be helped back down. So we got to see, by one trip or another, most of Colorado, all the way even down to Mesa Verde and up to Leadville, where Lindsay called me Brutus at our breakfast table. Baseball, Marilyn and I went to Mesa to see the Cubs, and besides the Cubs in spring training, we, as I look back now, I think we went to 9 different baseball big league stadiums. We went on various trips to the northern boundary between International Falls, Minnesota, all the way to Mackinac, up into the North Woods. We went to Oregon in the Northwest, Marilyn and I, even up to Mount St. Helens. We went to Hawaii, all 3 islands. We went to Wisconsin Dells with Becky and Dennis, to the apple orchards and all. We went to the Klondike with Axel and Martha, a working ranch in Wyoming near Buffalo. 2 trips to the Klondike. And then Horn Creek, Jerry and Carolyn especially liked our 2 trips to this church conference in the Sangre de Cristo range. And then Nebraska, some call it flyover country. I don't. I love Nebraska because that was our corridor 2 points west. Ogallala, North Platte, Grand Island, Kearney. I love Nebraska. Funny things, and we're almost done. It was at Lindale when Becky and Carolyn were walking alongside Grandma Martha, and she dropped her drawers right out there in the plaza. There was a trip to Wendy's Cheeseburger with Grandpa to take something home for Martha. So we went to Wendy's, went up to the place to order, and she said, "Can I help you, sir?" And I said, "1 cheeseburger." She said, "With cheese?" And I said, "No." Now, who was dumb or dumber? I paid for a cheeseburger, but there was no cheese. She was stupid. I was worse. There was Boulder, Colorado, where Jerry got my 2 shakes in the car, and all of a sudden I wasn't very thirsty. He put his first shake up on the top of the upholstery, and you know, he did it the second time the night later. 2 shakes in the upholstery. After camping in Colorado, coming home in Kansas, Carolyn got down and kissed the floor. She was so happy to get indoors. There was Bishop's downtown, where we went through the line, and beside me was Carolyn. She dropped her tray without any attention. She took Becky's tray, who was from behind her, and went on through the whole thing with Becky's tray. And Becky was left looking at hers on the floor. Strange. Becky never even really got angry. And we'll never forget at Bishop's, Grandpa Axel getting more and more sugar in his coffee by Jerry, and he said a little bit more, a little bit more, and Jerry finally put in the spoon, and it stood straight up. And Grandpa laughed and said, "Oh, Jerry, that's enough." Well, the 2 craziest follies I've left for the last. One happened at Jefferson. The last couple of days of school, there was one boy, sort of the fair-haired boy of the senior class, who would come into my government class, always at the last moment, go around to the back and sit down. He had a ponytail. And as he walked by my lectern, just before the bell would ring, and I would simulate cutting off his ponytail, and the kids would all laugh. Well, Joe, the night before that final day, hurt himself in a soccer game. Came in early in the morning with his dad and said, "Coach, I want my ponytail off for graduation. Why don't you cut it off before the kids?" So here came test day. Here came Joe in his wheelchair going past me. I took out a scissors and cut it off, and the class went crazy. They let out a yell that all the teachers around me came to wonder what in the world happened as I was holding up my prize to an uproarious crowd, my class at Jeff. And then the crazy one, going back to my initial opening, in case you were wondering about Sunday night television. Becky and I we would go over and watch games long after I was coaching. We'd see a half just for fun. And we were walking along the south end goal line area under the post, and the Washington band was out in the middle of the field, and suddenly out of the band running towards us and the south goal line area was a streaker. Had nothing on but his tennies and a smile. And he came running. Becky said, look who's coming, Dad. The stadium manager on the other side of the field happened to be there. He said, come on, Bob, let's catch him. So together we converged on him, and he's going over the fence, moon over Miami, the crowd going crazy, and we caught him, and then he was led off by the police. Well, that was the streaker. The next morning, Marilyn and I went on a rainy Sunday morning downtown to a pro-life celebration. And I happened to be interviewed why I was there and so forth. Well, Sunday night came around, we watched the news. The news began with me being interviewed about pro-life downtown. It ended in sports with me holding on to a streaker at a football game. I made both sessions. You talk about family follies, that takes the prize.